So let's have a look at this paper here now. So circulating vitamin D levels and mortality in prostate cancer patients, a dose response meta-analysis. So it's dose response because they found the higher the levels of vitamin D, the lower the mortality from people who already had prostate cancer. Now this is not instead of prostate cancer treatments in established medicine. It should be as well as, I would have thought, in most cases. So really, I would have thought everyone with prostate cancer should have their vitamin D levels titrated up. It's a cheap, effective intervention. The most expensive part, of course, is the blood test and trying to get your doctors to do the blood test. The vitamin D itself is cheap, and maybe that's its worst enemy. Big Pharma can't make any money out of it, so the large-scale trials that they do on new medications that they can make lots of money out of aren't being done. That's why we're trying to publicise these benefits on this channel, for example. Higher vitamin D levels could reduce the risk of death among prostate cancer patients. Now, the association of, this is the circulating 25-hydroxy vitamin D levels. This is the activated sort of vitamin D in the blood, which is the one we normally measure the levels of. With the prognosis of prostate cancer was what's being studied. They conducted a dose-response meta-analysis looking at different studies. They included 7 eligible cohort studies, adding up to 7,808 patients. So this is a pretty respectable number. So what did they find? The summary of hazard ratios of prostate cancer specific mortality. What they found is, for every 20 nanomoles a litre in circulating vitamin D, every time that went up, then the risk of death went down by 9%. And by the way, that's a very significant result. P equals 0.002, so that's only 2 chances in 1,000 that this result arose by chance. Always important to look at the significance of the result, that this is just not a spontaneous result by chance. That's very, very unlikely with this data. So hazard ratio of 91, giving a protective value of 9%. So you're only 91% as likely to die if you have 20 more nanomoles of vitamin D than if you don't. It was all-cause mortality as well as prostate cancer specific mortality. It gets even more interesting. So the people that had the high levels of vitamin D, for every 20 nanomoles per litre increase, they were 9% less likely to die altogether. So obviously if they had 40 nanomoles per litre increase, that would be 18% less likely to die, which is pretty worth having, that is for sure. So the hazard ratio goes down, that is the risk of dying goes down as the vitamin D level goes up, as the vitamin D level increases. So as we see at the higher levels that they checked out there, which was about 110. Now these studies here are the higher level studies. These are the lower level studies. So these kind of cancel out into these 2 lines. Now the reason there's 2 lines there is there's 2 different mathematical ways of analysing this data, but you see they're much the same. So we see at these kind of levels here, at the 110 level, we're getting, these patients are only about, 55% as likely to die. In other words, we're seeing something like a 65% protective effect at the higher levels compared to the lower levels of circulating vitamin D. This is really pretty strong findings. It could be that it causes cell cycle arrest, so the out-of-control mitosis that takes place in cancer could be arrested, and it could induce apoptosis. This apoptosis process is that cells that know they've gone wrong spontaneously commit suicide. The lysozyme inside the cell is released and the cell just self-digests. So that is increased by adequate levels of vitamin D, thereby essentially auto-digesting, self-digesting malignant cells. Inhibiting cell proliferation in several prostate cancer cell lines, so it stops the cells from over-dividing, because that's what cancer is. It's an out-of-control cell division process. And protection of prostate epithelial cells from oxidative stress. There are plausible biological mechanisms for why this can work. We don't know exactly how it works, but there's plausible mechanisms that it can. So it's a reasonable thing to assume, combined with this empirical data that these studies are giving. We really do need to change national guidelines in the United States and the United Kingdom, where prostate cancer is the #1 cancer, unfortunately, in men. Very common. And now they gave 4,000 units, which is 100 micrograms of vitamin D a day. Now, this is what I'm taking myself at the moment. I'll probably stop when the sun comes out more and I get more sunshine, but that's not yet in the north of England. So I'm taking 4,000 units of vitamin D a day personally. That's 100 micrograms of vitamin D. And I take that with 100 micrograms of vitamin K2. That's what I'm taking personally. Can't tell you what to take, but that's what I'm taking. Now, a relatively small scale study, of course, because as we said, these aren't conducted by the pharmaceutical industry throwing $10 million a trial or more at it, where we would get probably more conclusive results. But the study was still done on 24 out of 44 subjects. 55% showed a decrease in the number of positive cores, that's the number of positive cores on prostate biopsy, or decrease in the Gleason score. Now, the Gleason score is how the histology is graded in prostate cancer. So a higher Gleason score basically means the cells are more undifferentiated, more out of control. So vitamin D is stopping the progression of the Gleason score, or even a decrease in Gleason score, which is really remarkably good news. This is just incredible. And in all the studies that we looked at, there was no adverse effects at all of giving supplementary vitamin D at these levels. No adverse effects at all.